Today, I'm bringing you the ultimate social media masterclass combining the proven strategies of industry giants like Chalene Johnson, Pat Flynn, and Amy Porterfield. And over the next few sessions, you're gonna learn exactly how to build a profitable presence online this year.
You gotta just press record.
This video is broken down into 3 parts. First, you're gonna get Chalene Johnson's blueprint for turning social media into your full-time income without burning out or having to chase followers and chase trends. Then, you're gonna learn Pat Flynn's superfan strategy, his exact system for building a loyal community that's excited to buy anything you create. Finally, you're gonna get Amy Porterfield's new rules of creating a profitable online course. She has helped thousands of people turn what they know into a successful online course that makes money and changes people's lives. But there's a lot of things changing with how people buy and consume courses. And so you're definitely gonna wanna see this so you have the most recent information so you can have an edge. And the best part is you don't need a huge following to make this work. In fact, coming up, we're gonna see why you actually only need just 500 engaged followers to build a profitable online business. That's revealed in session number 1 with Chalene Johnson. So let's cut over to that right now.
I don't care about having even one more new follower. Why do I need another one? I don't know the people who are following me. People want to consume less. We don't want to spend as much time on social, so we want to follow less. How many people do you follow and look at all of their content? I think the biggest trend is community.
Your community doesn't have to be large for you to be able to survive in a social media recession.
You could create a real business with under 500. Whatever platform you're on, that's the move.
If you've been noticing that your views are going down, your engagement, your likes are going down, you're not alone. Everything is changing in social media. There's a lot of trends that are dead and they just do not work anymore. And there's a lot of new things that you need to know if you ultimately want to not just grow your following, but grow your business, generate sales, and make an impact in more people's lives. So today we have Chalene Johnson back. She's a New York Times bestselling author, the founder and creator of the Marketing Impact Academy. And she's gonna be dropping some free game about how to get your social media right now. Chalene, how's it going?
Dude, how do you do that without notes? Like you just riff that. You are a unicorn.
I mean, I got lucky, but I've known you now. It's like 8-9 years.
Yeah.
We're coming up on our decade.
Wow, we should throw a party.
We should throw a party. Yeah.
Like a vow renewal.
That would be awesome. And I'm so grateful for you because you love social media, you study it at a high level, and you are, I know people don't like the term influencer. You're an Instagrammer, all these followers and all this stuff. You've built up your platform, but you're a real business owner. You're a real entrepreneur that ties the social media world into customer sales, leads. But you understand all these divergent worlds and can bring some clarity in the chaos that we're experiencing right now.
That's what it is too. It's chaos.
Yeah, it's just wild out there. And I know people are a lot frustrated. What worked in the past isn't working right now. Mm-hmm. So I want to actually tackle some trends that have died before we get into some things that are working and how do we really build our business on social. But what are some dead trends that you're noticing? How do you feel about celebrity influencer endorsements?
They're not doing well. I mean, if you look at big brands, and by the way, there's exceptions to everything, right? There's some celebrities who they touch it and it sells out immediately. But now brands are looking at how they're spending their dollars, and they have so much a much easier time working with people with a smaller following who have a very loyal community that listens to them and believes them and doesn't see them as this kind of like sellout celebrity kind of thing. So the celebrities are not getting their big brand deals anymore because those dollars are being spent on, micro and nano influencers.
And define a micro and nano influencer.
Well, I don't think anybody, for whatever reason, wants to be called an influencer anymore. It has like this really negative connotation, but basically, if you've got more than 100 people that are following you and interacting, right, and they're real people, then you've got some influence. And that means that brands are looking at you like, okay, does this person have a good relationship with the people who are communicating with them? Is there trust there? And they would much rather do, hundreds of nano influencer deals versus one big mega influencer deal, where that person's hard to work with. Their rates are ridiculous. You can't tell if they've bought half their followers. The engagement isn't real. So they would much rather work with these people who are more authentic.
Yeah, that's really good news. We talk a lot for small YouTube creators or smaller channels or across the platforms. micro and nano influencers are where brands want to invest their dollars. And the influencer marketing industry, the last numbers we were looking at was close to 20 billion and growing about 20% a year. That's just that vertical. There's so many different ways to make money. Just that one vertical is massive money flowing into the system. So that's actually a good news, dead trend, that the money is going to everyday creators. How about on Instagram and other vertical platforms where people are lip syncing, pointing at words, and kind of dancing around?
I mean, sometimes it will work, but rarely, because how often do you just swipe past that? And if we're talking about monetizing your social media, you've got to get people to know, like, and trust you. I don't know you. If I'm not even hearing your voice. You're using someone else's voice. You're pointing to words on the screen. And listen, I still do it sometimes because I'm being lazy. It's super easy to create that kind of content. So I don't want to discourage someone who's like, oh man, I just found the courage to do this, then continue. But eventually, we need to know who you are, and we need to hear your voice. And the consumer is kind of sick of the copycat trend, which really worked. Like, that's how TikTok took off. Like, there was a trend, and then everybody copied the trend. You'd see like 50,000 versions of that same trend. And now people are like, I got it. Like, let's see something real.
So best practice in today's world is talk to camera, get on camera, if we're going vertical video and social media, and deliver some value. But
value isn't enough.
Okay.
Like, I mean, it used to be.
So that's another dead trend. So another dead trend is just providing value.
Yes, unfortunately.
So what's the next level?
The next level is, how do you provide value that captivates the entire time? So it's like really thinking about, just like you do on YouTube, what is the very first sentence that I'm going to say on Instagram and TikTok and, you know, any of these short form platforms. You used to be able to just like create some great content and there was a hook in there someplace, but now you've got 3 seconds. So that extra breath is a moment where you might lose some, and they're swiping. So it's really putting thought in up-leveling your content, because your mom is creating content. You know what I mean? So it's like there's so much supply and very little demand. So you have to up-level. That means if you're going to provide value, it also you've got to think about, how can I captivate?
And part of that is also entertaining. And so you'd call it edutainment.
I would.
Education with entertainment, but something that's make it more interesting. You have the environment you're filming in, the visuals,
it can
the
be
cadence.
Edits. I mean, because I've seen some people who are like not entertaining people in real life. I just know because I've met them.
Yeah.
But their content's super entertaining because they found a really great editor, or maybe they're doing it themselves. Hopefully they're outsourcing that. But you know, you can take any piece of content, a professor delivering a lecture, and if it's edited the right way, it's entertaining.
How about the metaverse?
What about the metaverse? That word scares me. What is that? What do you
I
want to
don't
know?
Do you think it's a big trend this year? Or do you think it's kind of dead for now? I don't think that it's the place that people are focusing on.
No, I don't. You know, I think for entrepreneurs, like in terms of saving time and even just like writing captions and coming up with great titles and even content ideas, artificial intelligence, oh my God, like friggin' game changer. Like it just, for that person who's like, I'm not creative, I can't come up with ideas, I've just got the script, but I don't know how to make my first sentence interesting. Throw it into ChatGPT or an AI platform and say, tell me what's the most interesting sentence to start this paragraph off so I hook my viewers.
So a dead trend is humans that are not enhanced by artificial intelligence.
Basically, yeah.
If you are just, I don't want to use it, I don't want to leverage it. I think the quote that's been going around is, artificial intelligence isn't going to replace you. Somebody using artificial intelligence is going to replace you.
Facts. And it's a skill to use it. Like you just, whatever you put in as a prompt, what you're going to get back is like, okay. But then you just keep refining it. And the next thing you know, you're like, did I write this? I'm a genius. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's being patient.
What do you think about NFTs?
I know nothing about them.
Yeah.
They don't interest me at all. Like I'm like a la. So that's what I know about NFTs.
Brock Johnson was mentioning that Instagram backed off.
Oh, I know.
On their NFTs. Yeah. And originally, there's a new CEO.
I told them too, because I was like, guys, this is boring.
Right? And there's the market's also crashed, the value, and there's been a lot of low trust level in them because there were so many scams.
I just didn't get it. Anytime someone described it to me, I'm like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And not only that, but the Susan, the CEO of YouTube, left, was replaced by a new guy. And some of the mistrust for him was like, YouTube's going all in on NFTs.
Oh.
And it's all kind of dissolved. So I think that's probably another dead trend. Probably not forever, but at least for now.
As with all trends, right? Sometimes they do cycle back. And that's why you have to tune into experts so that you don't have to figure it out. Like watching the show. And when you have an expert, it's like outsourcing that side of your business. Because this stuff is a game changer. Like you have such an advantage if you understand what trends are dying, and what's about to happen. So you can innovate.
Yes. And so speaking now of, we've been talking kind of about what's not working with everything that's changing in social media and what is working.
Well, I think it's important to talk about the fact that we're in a social media recession, and there is an inordinate number of people who are just now producing content. Your mom, your cousin, like everyone has multiple accounts. They're creating content. Everyone wants to be get podcast deals or sponsorship or become a nano influencer. So there's an unbelievable supply. And statistically speaking, people want to consume less. We don't want to spend as much time on social, so we want to follow less. So it's just like a recession in the economy when there's, people don't have enough money, i.e. time, and there's a huge supply. Then what you're going to see is people are very choosy about how they're spending, and they're spending their time on the very few creators who actually deliver, right? So because of that, if you know that, and just think about your own human nature, how many people do you follow and look at all of their content? Very few, right? And you probably follow thousands of people, at least hundreds, and maybe you look at between 5 and 8 of them per day. So how do you become one of those 5 or 8? You do that by understanding human nature. If you're getting fewer likes, less engagement, fewer followers, you're not doing something wrong. We just have so much supply. So how do you combat that? What's the trend? The trend is to be innovative, to adapt, to not follow the trends, to notice what you're not interested in anymore on social, and stop producing that. Like, even though everyone's producing the same kind of thing and you're like, this is so boring or dumb, then don't do that, Even though it seems like it's popular, it's not, it's dying. By the time you're sick of it, it's dying. So innovate, be creative. I think the biggest trend is community. We were just talking about music, right? Like when people, back in the day, you buy an album, you listen to every single song over and over and over again. Now you hear someone, dropped a new album and you listen to the hit and then you move on.
And that's it.
Yeah. Unless you're like, that's your dude, right? Like Drake just dropped a new album. I'm going to listen to every single song, and memorize the words because you belong there, right? Like, so I think creating community in our social is so underrated.
That's huge. I know that our mutual friend, Pat Flynn, who's also one of the instructors in the Marketing Impact Academy, wrote a book called Superfans.
Loved it.
Superfans is the edge. And what's kind of funny is thinking about dead trends or new trends. Community, you could call it a new trend, but there's a book called Raving Fans.
Oh, yeah.
That's maybe 20, 30 years old.
Yeah.
Raving fans is the essence of any real business.
Yes.
If you can actually make deeper connections, and then your community doesn't have to be large for you to be able to survive in a social media recession.
That's right.
If you have 1,000 true fans, then anything's possible, and you could weather any storm.
And less than 1,000 today. I think if they were to republish that book, it'd be less than 1,000. I think you could create a real business with under 500 if you're really tapping into your community, right? And I think that's what a lot of people miss because they're focused on getting that viral video. And when you focus on going viral, what happens is you follow a trend and you get all these people to follow you or at least see your content, and they don't follow you because the rest of your content doesn't deliver that same thing, that niche. It doesn't provide value that's entertaining on that same particular topic. People are very topic focused. We have a problem that we need to solve, and that's why I'm following you. That's why I subscribe to your YouTube channel. That's why I continually watch your content.
Is there an example that comes to mind of a business or a brand, your own or somebody else's, that has innovated or pivoted in this recession and something that they're doing recently? Yeah.
Well, I would, not to toot my own horn, but I really did a big pivot. I don't care about having even one more new follower on Instagram, even though I teach Instagram and I tell people, don't do what I do if you're looking for more followers. I'm not. I have over 760,000 followers. Why do I need another one? I don't know the people who are following me. And I just want to make sure they're consuming my content. I have a relationship with them. So I just focus now, really my strategy there is to really connect on stories. And I spend a lot more time in my DMs than I do thinking like, okay, what should be the next reel that I post? Or is this, cool or interesting? Am I going to get new followers? Is this going to go viral? I don't care because I built it, right? So now I want to get to know them.
That's interesting. And by spending more time in your DMs, you're spending more time going deeper with the people who are already there rather than being in this pursuit and desperate cling for new people or more people or going viral.
Yeah, and desperate's a word. I think we all, and I can say we've all feel that way sometimes where you're like, you look at other people's content and sometimes it's dumb content where you're like, how is this going viral? And you're like, okay, I'm going to do something dumb too. And it just doesn't work. And then you start to question yourself and you go on this loop where you're looking at other, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to quit. I'm done with social media. I hate it. But if you just don't worry about those metrics. Like, do not worry about those vanity metrics. And you really just think about like, how can I entertain, provide value, but also let people know who I am and just keep pouring into my community. Every day I'll hear from students who are like, I can't get people to talk to me or engage with me in my social, whether it's YouTube or TikTok or Instagram. And when I go and look at their content, it's almost always because it's monologue style. Where they're just like talking at them as opposed to bringing them in, getting their feedback, asking their opinions, delivering content because they asked for it. And then also saying the reason why I've just created this for you. Like nothing I do in my business has anything to do with my hair, right? But in my DMs yesterday, all day long, people are like, will you show us how you do your hair? Show us how you do your hair. And I'm like, all right, has nothing to do with my niche. But I created a reel today showing people how I style my hair because I'm pouring into my existing followers and that's what they asked for. And I want them to look at me as like I'm their girlfriend, their BFF.
Yeah, that's powerful. Now, I want to talk about how to actually monetize on social. A lot of creators are focusing on the wrong things.
Yes.
Now, when it comes to most people focusing on social media and trying to make money, everybody thinks they need 1 million followers. They need to go viral. They are hoping that Reels Meta pays them, even though they just pulled that away.
Yeah.
They're hoping to get monetized on YouTube, even though unless you're massive, it kind of just pays pennies, so it's not very practical. Yeah. And so where are people missing it in terms of their philosophy of actually making money on social media?
And that's why I'm doing this workshop, because we want this to be super simple, and it's not. There are levels to it. It's not just what you're seeing. Like we see someone who's got a large YouTube following, a large Instagram following, getting a lot of likes, and we just assume that's how they're making money. But it's not, right? And so it's teaching people how much they're leaving on the table, number one. So how to set up a foundation so that if you do get approached by somebody who wants to offer you a brand deal or a paid post, do you already know how to position yourself? Do you already know how to disclose or pitch your rates? Do you already have, if someone is looking at your viral video, or we call it viral for me, right? So if you have a video that goes viral for you, meaning it gets 50% more views than what you get on a normal piece of content, so that's a really good piece of content for you. What do you do with those people when they look at it? They may never come back. So how do you capture them? It's understanding like the things you have to set up, like an email list, understanding retargeting, understanding how you can, once you've got someone's attention, it's the most valuable thing you could have. Don't let them just walk out the door, right? So I like to teach people what do those basics look like, because they're not that hard, but no one talks about it. It's all gate kept, And maybe it's not gatekept. Maybe just people find it boring. But if you don't do it,
yes,
you're not going to make money. I mean, the chances are of you making a business out of your social media is pretty sketch.
Yes. And a sustainable business as well, because for a lot of people, content creators, quote unquote influencers, or even entrepreneurs that dip their toes in the social media game, it's kind of feast or famine or 15 minutes of fame. A lot of people are here today, gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's interesting as one of the reasons why you're such a mentor to me is because you have stood the test of time and continue to reinvent yourself. You've weathered every the highs and the lows, because you've built a real business. And I think that there's a lot to learn there. So I'm excited for that masterclass coming up. But I wanted to point out one thing you mentioned, because I have a confession to make. You mentioned what you always say, VFM, viral for me. That's one of the things I've stolen from you. So I have taught VFM to our community. One of the other ones I say all the time, I'm like, listen, you got to be brief, be bright, be fun, and be done.
That's awesome.
I never give you credit.
Oh, good. Thank goodness.
And that's probably one of scared money don't make money, you know.
Who did you steal the riches are in the niches from?
I don't think, is that one even stealable? I don't know who could have said that
but
first.
My son gives you credit for it all the time.
There's no way that was.
Yeah, you get credit for a lot of things.
That's just
in
one
my
of
household.
those. Technically, it's niches, so
Right.
it's the riches are in the niches, but it only works, and everybody gets offended if they don't live in the U.S. where we say niche.
Yeah.
The riches are in the niches, but that one I don't. That's one of those ones that's been so stolen.
Yeah,
that
but
it'd
it's
be hard.
still so true.
It is so true.
Still so true.
So if any more come to mind, but what people will begin to realize is that, you know, your frameworks and all of these strong principles that you teach are really concrete. And that's why.
Well, I try to simplify them because it can be super duper overwhelming. And as you know, I've got extreme ADHD. So this stuff would really overwhelm me and complicate me. Like there's all these things I'm supposed to be doing all at once. My executive function dysfunctions and I don't know which one to do first. So I try to do all of them. And I've just learned, especially in business, that you have to slow down and go, okay, there's a step one. There's what do I do second, what do I do third? Because I can't do all these things at once. If I do, I'll fail. And then I feel defeated. So because I struggle with that, I think I'm good at simplifying these things, even though sometimes I like to make it easy, even though sometimes the content, it just requires someone breaking it down in simple steps.
Yeah, I love that. So speaking of monetization, and you're talking about some of these steps, one of the biggest steps that was kind of funny because I had been trying to grow on social media from 2007 was when I first started a YouTube channel for my church. That's super early days. 2010, Think Media starts. I had my video production channel, and I had my personal channel where I was doing a lot of random, mainly on YouTube, vlogs, cooking videos, movie reviews, all this random stuff. And so now I'm doing my best to absorb learnings and education from people, but for 2010 to 2015, made a little money with ranking videos and affiliate marketing. But then I discovered your podcast, Build Your Tribe. And then eventually I joined your program, the Marketing Impact Academy. Then became a professor. And then became a professor in the Marketing Impact Academy. But one of the things that multiple episodes on Build Your Tribe just started to revolutionize my thinking was you started saying you need to build an email list. Also not super sexy. Wasn't like, like, let's go. I'm pumped. Like, let's, because I want to go make a video or I want to go vlog with my wife and our dogs down in Laguna Beach at the time, and kind of go do fun stuff. But there's also these practical things. And that changed everything. And even today, brand new stats, 2023 came out about how email marketing is the most effective way to get to actually reach people when algorithms are so fickle. Why do you encourage people to build an email list?
It's crazy that is still the thing. If you would have asked me 10 years ago if I thought that would be the case 10 years later, I would say I'm not sure. But like yesterday, I met with some, big YouTubers who they started a podcast like 9 years ago. And 2 years ago, they started doing YouTube channel, right? And they're like, that's when we realized like we've got to build our email list. And he said two things happened. First of all, people found them on YouTube, their podcast. And then secondly, they started to truly monetize because they focused on their email list. And recently they were just approached by a major player, Spotify, reached out to them to acquire them for a deal that is a pretty hefty 8 figures.
Wow.
To go exclusive on Spotify, and they declined Spotify was like, what?
Yeah.
Hello, do you know who we are? But they just say that because you don't see that. You don't see an email list. I mean, I don't talk about my email list, but I'm building it every single day in social. Every story, not every story, but every day I'm doing something on stories that's intentionally working to reach that person who's like, I want more. I'm not here for the haircut. I want to learn more. I want to go deeper. And I want to be able to serve those people. And then it's really knowing how to deliver an email that people are going to open.
Yeah. Well, we could spin off on that. These days at Think Media, we're talking about open rates and deliverability and subject lines and copy.
It's fascinating stuff.
And the different service providers and the nuances of deliverability that they have. And you can get pretty deep.
So I have to say this. I can't tell you, because I got hacked in 2015, right? So for whatever reason, my name gets passed around to everybody in social media, celebrities. I've had like people on TV shows have their agents reach out to me, so-and-so got hacked. The people who are the most freaked out when they reach out to me are the people who have built an empire in social. and they are devastated because they've got a notification from, let's say, Instagram, violation of community guidelines. Account is gone, which means money is gone. Sponsorship's gone. Like, it's all gone because they didn't build those foundational pieces. You asked me earlier, there's so many people, probably 3 a week. I hear from people who are like, I had the 2-factor authentication. I was using password protected software. I was doing all the things. We had 2-factor authentication, all the things, and I still got hacked, or I still lost my account, or I still fill in the blank. And then every once in a while I hear from someone that says, but it's okay because I've got my email list, and so I can rebuild it, and I still have a way to make income. So it isn't sexy, but neither is opening up a bank account. Neither is, doing some of the things that it's adulting. And if you're on social media, this is the adulting you need to do.
Man, that is so powerful. And what are some tips? Think Media got hacked. Think Media Podcast, this YouTube channel that this episode will be on. We had 2-factor on. It was probably cookie hijacking. It was Tesla official or Tesla CEO, where they start streaming Elon Musk to scam crypto. They used a Google Titan key on their end as soon as they got us out of it. So then it was like they were the ones that had the authority. And then for 10 days, our ad revenue went to zero. We couldn't upload, obviously. And one, grateful it wasn't our main channel. 2, big wake-up call. 3, I was still able to sleep good at night because of our email list, our actual business, diversification of our brand.
It is so scary, and it's such a violation.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the pit in the bottom of my stomach. Like,
huge pit.
You feel like someone has broken into your home. It is the weirdest feeling. And I hear from people all the time, they're like, I'm not of interest. I've got 200 followers or whatever. I'm like, no, you are an identity. So you are of interest. You are of value. And a lot of times these schemes are aimed at people who have a big following, but the people get these huge numbers when we're looking at the statistics of people who are hacked on a daily basis. It's just random.
What are some of your quick tips? A couple topics I want to hit as we land the plane, which is famous last words. We're not even close to landing the plane, but but just a few tips on keeping yourself safe that you've learned. I also want to hear about Patreon. We get a lot of questions about that. You're a Patreon legend.
Yeah, thanks.
For some people, they have struggled getting that off the ground, YouTube partner channel memberships. And then maybe just touching on a little bit of what you're going to, obviously people can go to the class and there's so much to cover, but even why building a team or things like that are so critical to really create an edge eventually as you build your social media business. But speak to some of those practical things.
Yeah. The two things that I think are important to connect are team and protecting yourself.
Okay.
Because more often than not, especially today, the people that I'm hearing from who have lost their account, they were doing everything right, but they had given access to a team member, or a team member accidentally clicked on a link, or a team member accidentally gave, etc. So I would say, there's basics. Like, the basics are 2-factor authentication. The basics are using some type of authentication app versus having those numbers or codes sent directly to your phone. Because
what's an authentication
like
app?
a Google authentication app. When you're logging into, say, YouTube or Instagram, you pull up that app and it will generate a code for you that expires within, I think, 30 seconds. And then you plug it into whatever.
Instead of getting text, because if they had your Apple ID or hacked your Apple ID, they can get the code that's text to you.
That's right. And that's what happens to a lot of people, and they don't realize it. They're like, I got it back, and then I lost it again. That's why. There's so many steps ahead of us that you just need to do the basics. Like, use an authentication app. Always use a password manager. Don't think, I've got really great passwords and I keep them on my phone note. I put them on, if you're my dad, I put it on a little Post-it note on the top of my laptop.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got to use that. And then you have to make sure your entire team does.
Yeah.
And almost all of those apps are low cost, and it's a mandatory thing. Nobody on my team touches any accounts unless they're using the app where everything is authenticated.
And so team also could mean agency. It could also,
For sure.
Third-party apps are kind of scary, because if something is logged into your YouTube channel via a third-party app and that gets hacked, that is actually a vulnerability point. Which
I haven't heard much of that.
I haven't heard much of that either,
but
they do say, because you say, do you trust this account that you're allowing to, So those are some great tips. We'll come back to building it a little bit about getting a team around this, but what are you guys doing on Patreon?
Fun. So that to me is really community. right? So that is, you think about the people when I'm creating long form content and podcasts. So I've got a business podcast, and then I have a personal podcast. It's lifestyle, it's health, etc. We just talk about everything, lifestyle. And there I just found, I've got some people who listen to the show that just want more of the personal stuff, like really want the off the record, how do you really feel kind of thing, which maybe isn't valuable to somebody else, but it's interesting or entertaining to a certain segment of your population. And so we created a Patreon, and it's just so fun because it's like your deepest friends or your raving fans, right?
Yes.
And so that's fun. It's super low production. I literally grab my phone. I don't even use a microphone. I record it while I'm in my car. I record it while I'm trying on clothes. Like I record it while I'm putting on my makeup. So it's like they're spending time with me. They know it's not scripted. It's completely authentic. It's the stuff that I don't feel appropriate putting on the regular show. And it's fun. But most importantly, it builds this solid community of people that belong. People are looking for a place to belong. And when people are now paying content creators, whether it's on Instagram, now has a subscription, I'm sure TikTok's going to follow, YouTube's doing their own thing too. And I think that's the move, man. Whatever platform you're on, that's the move.
Yeah, community, taking that place where you're moving them from whatever platform to someplace deeper. That's very fascinating. And
I will say this about the Patreon app. It's janky. Like, it's not great.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they're making millions and millions. Like, how are they not improving this platform? It works great for the end user.
Yeah.
But as a creator, I'm like, this is funky. So I hope it improves. Or they'll get put out of business. Somebody else will take over.
And there are, off the top of channel memberships. Channel memberships from YouTube's kind of a bummer. They take 30%.
30%?
Yeah, Patreon takes like 5%.
Yeah.
And I know there's some other alternatives, but the idea of building community is so powerful. All right, building a team, like all the way back to trends are dying, things are changing. Business owners are listening to this, entrepreneurs that want to build their personal brand. They want to get into social media. What's building a team? Riff on that.
Yeah, I would think the first thing you have to do is don't think about building a team. Think about hiring one part-time temporary person. Like, you just need help. You just need help. Like, you can't be doing all this stuff yourself. And especially because now I think another trend we're going to see is moving away from quantity, right? Like, you got to post more. You got to, more. I think people are like, nah, I want better. So in order to produce better content, that means better editing. And I don't know about you, but I want to do the research to create the best content. I don't want to do the research and spend all the time editing when there are people who can do that at a fraction of what it would cost me to spend my time doing that. And they're going to do it better. So it's like, even just consider batch creating some content and finding somebody who will edit some reels for you, or edit some YouTube shorts, or edit some TikToks, or just maybe even taking a look. Here's the way I would say, let me just give you a quick takeaway. Do this, all right? Go on to Upwork.com and or Fiverr, Fiverr.com, and hire somebody to take the videos or the content you've already produced in the last 6 months that did well, your best performing content. Send it to them and say, re-edit this, make it better, make it more captivating, put the hook at the front, and you're going to get content. You can produce that again. It's already proven, and now it's going to perform even better. You won't have to spend any time, 0 time. You don't have to create the content. You don't have to edit it. And you'll be shocked at how much that will do for your growth and your brand and your mental health.
Yeah.
Like, being an entrepreneur, trying to grow on social media, all these things, it can kill you. Like, if you're not smart about figuring out who is the first person you need to delegate to help you. And don't think of it as a full-time thing. Just pay project by project.
That's super powerful. And speaking of when you're in a social media recession, when you're trying to raise the level, it's going to be very difficult to raise the level by yourself.
Dude, yeah.
When somebody else is potentially, we're not talking about having to break the bank here.
No.
Deeper in your programs, you teach about outsourcing and how affordable that can be. And part of it's also systems, the right tools, the right systems, the right people. And it's not I've seen the limiting belief. I've had the limiting belief of, okay, So I got to hire somebody for a $60,000 a year salary.
Yeah.
They're a W-2 employee. I have to pay employment taxes. I need a healthcare plan probably if I'm even going to get this person.
Right.
I probably need an office that they'll come and you just like
a lunchroom.
You spin off. Yeah. I'm going to have to stock the snack bar. And it's like, no, you could hire somebody for 10 hours.
Legit. Yeah.
Like, and that when you do the actual economics and math, as you say, scared money don't make money.
And we break that down for our students, our members inside Marketing Impact Academy. A lot of times when they join, they don't have a business yet. They just are like kind of scared about this idea. I'm not sure if it would work. I don't know if this is my thing. And one of the first things we teach them is how to hire. And they're like, wait, why would I hire anyone? I'm not making any money and I can't afford to do that. I've just invested in this program. Like, how are you expecting me to hire anyone? And we break it down for them so that they understand, like, no, it's not hiring a full-time person. That I don't know very many people that would.
Yeah.
It's who do you need right now so that you can start making money? What's the minimum amount of money that you can spend? Let me show you where to hire them, where to find them, how to write the ad, how to interview them, how to vet their portfolio, how to know how are you supposed to pay them, what's the right going rate depending on what country they're in. All of those things people don't know unless you teach them how to do those. And who's the first hire, second hire, third hire? What do I do if I do want somebody full-time? Like all of those things are, having been in business for 30 years, been there, done that.
There's many challenges, but what do you see as the opportunity ahead for leaning into?
It's big. It's awesome because what is another trend that's just dead is the perfection stuff. Like, oh my God, especially as a woman, so annoying, so triggering, so like, I want to throw up at some of the stuff that you felt like you had to post before, right? And how perfect your house had to be a certain aesthetic and your kids had to match it. Like, none of it made any sense to me. And, I have to be like a bro standing in front of my Rolls Royce. Like, none of that stuff works. And so, pretty privilege, all that stuff goes by the wayside. People want real. And that is awesome because it's so much easier to remember, like to keep track of who you are if you're just who you are, as opposed to putting on this like social media persona and pretending and editing. And it's getting a backlash. People don't want to see that. They want legit, real. And if you know how to be real, that's a huge opportunity and it's a lot easier.
Coming up next in our social media masterclass is Pat Flynn sharing his super fans strategy. This is one of the most powerful pieces of content I've ever seen. It has really changed our company, Think Media, this YouTube channel, and our overall business. And I think you're going to love it. But if you've been getting value so far, can you hit the like button and let me know any of your takeaways or maybe future guests you would love to see in content like this. And if you are interested in content to help you start and grow a profitable YouTube channel, then I want to invite you to check out the Think Media podcast. It's available on YouTube or anywhere you listen to audio podcasts. And every single week we upload 2 episodes with unfiltered tips for building a profitable YouTube channel. If you're looking to get views, subscribers, and for strategies to create an unfair advantage in a competitive marketplace, then definitely check it out. I'll link to it in the show notes and description below, or you can always search Think Media Podcast and get access to those power-packed interviews and tactical strategic sessions that we post every single week on video and audio. All right, get ready because session number 2 is with Pat Flynn, and this one will change everything for you. So check out the whole thing, and I'll see you on the other side.
If you want to change somebody's life, start by changing their day first. What does this audience want to see? How can I make them feel special? How can I make them feel like they're a part of something? When you make time to really connect with your audience, they will become fans even more. That's my wife, April. She is a super fan of the Backstreet Boys, or as she calls them, her boys. I'm also a fan of something that for people on the outside, they're like, wow, that's totally weird, because that's what it's like for people on the outside. They think it's kind of strange. But if you're on the inside, if you're a fan of something and you find another person who's also a fan of that thing, you're immediately like best friends, like right away, right? And the thing that I am a super fan of is a movie called Back to the Future. See, now we could be best friends, I can already tell. And this is just a fraction of some of the memorabilia that I have. And what's really interesting about superfans is superfans will, A, spend a lot of money with you, B, talk about you incessantly, even though nobody asks for it, And for us who are in the YouTube and creator space, this is our marketing team. These are the people who will go to at bat for us. These are the people who will defend our channels from trolls and haters and WhatsApp commenters inside of our comments, right? They will be there before we even know a fire exists. And if something happens to your brand or if you change your way, they're not going to be sad. They're going to be downright devastated because they've made you, your brand, your message a part of their life. Now, what's really interesting is I've gained a number of super fans over the years, and I've noticed something amazing about them. They tend to want to give you things. And here are some examples. This is a piece of artwork from a man named Ernesto, and this is an ancient Mexican form of artwork of string on beeswax. And he spent 2 weeks making this thing that says Pat to the Flynn, which is really amazing. I came out with a book in 2015 called Will It Fly? And this is Jeffrey, who said, hey, Pat, thanks for all you do. Heard you're publishing a book next year. I don't know what it's about. I just want to buy 20 copies to support you and give them away to my friends and family, which is incredibly generous. And I also have a podcast. Any listeners of the SPI podcast? Yes, let's go. My podcast comes out every Wednesday. One time I was late, and you know what? I heard about it from Steven here. He said, where the is episode 112? And he followed that up with, thanks, love your stuff, Steve. That's how much he loved me, because he was yelling at me in all caps, right? But this is about the human beings on the other end, about creating experiences and bringing your community together. And I'm going to teach you how to have fans like this in your business and brand that could support you, right? So I want to introduce the pyramid of fandom here for you. And this is going to be the structure of our presentation. And it starts with the largest part of our user base. If you imagine this pyramid, your entire user base, anybody who's ever heard of you, most of them lie down here in the bottom. This is your casual audience. They've just found you. They discovered you on a search or a link or a mention from somewhere else or on social media. They don't quite know exactly who you are or what you've done yet, but you've created a piece of content that resonates with them in some way, shape, or form. And our job is to convert them from a casual audience member to now an active audience member, right? Active audience member. This is now a subscriber, a follower, a person who knows how to talk about you with others. And if you come out with a product or something, piece of content, they're most likely going to at least check it out because they know who you are now. And this is where many creators stop. We just want subscribers and that's it. But we could keep going, and that's where the bigger opportunities lie. We can bring people into now a connected community. This is where the magic happens in our brands, right? This is where the community comes together, and it's not just you talking to them and them talking to you. It's them finding and talking to each other. They can sometimes even create a name for themselves, right? Like, what are fans of Taylor Swift called? Swifties. How about fans of Lady Gaga? Little Monsters, right? And Beyonce's Beehive. And fans of Justin Bieber? Just weird, right? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, the Believers, exactly. But this is where magic happens in the brand, and I'm going to show you how to bring the community together. And then finally, some of those people will become the super fans like we've been talking about. But what's really interesting about this ascension up this pyramid is that gravity is working against us, right? We have to help people go up this pyramid. And unfortunately, this is what most people are focused on, something that we are all very familiar with. You have a bunch of traffic coming in. Some of those traffic become subscribers. Some of those subs become people who visit your sales page. And some of those people now become customers. What is this called, everybody? A funnel, exactly. And funnels are awesome and are necessary, especially because you can automate a lot of this and focus elsewhere. However, you remove a lot of the human experience and moments of magic in your brand when you focus just on this. And if you just focus on this, you might get some active audience members, you might get some customers, but there's so much more opportunity, because when we look at this, let me ask you, where is most of the engagement in your audience going to come from? The top or the bottom of this pyramid? Where are most of your repeat customers going to come from? The top or the bottom of this pyramid? So why are we so focused on getting more people into the pyramid versus getting people who are in the pyramid, in our brands already, up this pyramid? Does that make sense? We should bring people up this pyramid. And the cool thing about this is when we do this, people who are in the top parts of this pyramid will bring new people in for us. And they don't come in cold anymore. They come in active because it comes from a recommendation from within. Is this making sense? Let me hear yes. Okay, fantastic. And the biggest lesson here to learn is that superfans are not created the moment people find you. They're created by the moments that you create for them over time. So we are going to showcase how we can bring people from casual to audience, active audience to community, and community to superfans. This is how we're going to go about it. And it starts at the bottom here. Remember, most of the people who find us at the bottom. Now, let me ask you this. Have you experienced this already at this conference? You find somebody that you've never met before and you had a chat with them and it sounds like this. Hey, where are you from? What do you do? What's your YouTube channel? What's your name? Like all that stuff. How many of you have met people like that already, right? I hope so, because you're here not just to learn from us on stage, you're here to network with each other, right? But there's that one conversation you have with one person who's like, hey, where'd you go to school? Oh, I went to UC Berkeley. You went to Berkeley? No way, I went to Berkeley too. Are you serious? What year did you graduate? Oh my gosh, we probably passed each other in quad, best friends forever, go Bears. Right? You find that one person who had a similar thing or similar experience to you, and boom, you're immediately connected. You don't even need to talk further. You already know this person is gonna vibe with you, right? So my suggestion for you in your videos is to put a little bit more personality into your business. I went to a conference once, and it was in San Diego, and it was on like a boat, which was really cool. And I was getting out of the bathroom, and I hear across the room a woman yelling at me, and she says, Pat, big baby, Pat Flynn, big baby. I was like, what the heck is going on? That's kind of rude. So I went up to her because she was yelling at me, and her name was Jennifer. It was on her name tag, and she goes, oh my God, Pat, I love you. I listen to your podcast all the time. Like, you're the best. And I'm like, then why were you mean to me? And she said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, I just remember one episode where you talked about how you were an 11-pound, 12-ounce baby, and I had a big baby, and I connected with that. This is true, by the way. Proof, this is me 1 week after birth. Don't look at it in the eyes, because The crazy part about this also is my mom's 4'11", so I have literally no idea how this works. Like, physics and geometry go out the window when I think about that. Anyway, the beginning of my podcast, actually can we go back a slide? Because that's really scary. Okay, there we go. In my podcast and on my videos, I share a lot about my life, but not for like several minutes, just little notes here and there about who I am. For example, now you know I'm a fan of Back to the Future, and that's something you know about me, similar to how we know those kinds of things about our friends, right? And that helps differentiate you, and it might connect with somebody, but if anything, it makes you even more unique. It makes you more human, right? So Back to the Future, okay, Pat, like, what does that mean? Well, check this out. This is a tweet from Andy who says, I can't even watch Back to the Future anymore without thinking about Pat Flynn and SPI. Here's one from Joel who said, look what I found at Target. When I think of Back to the Future, I think of Pat Flynn. And then here is Chris who says, Back to the Future is playing right now on ABC. I wonder if Pat Flynn can sense it. And yes, Chris, I can. I can. So the big lesson here is a lot of these little moments and things about you are what make you unique. Nobody is like you, so why are we not talking about who we are as a person? Now, I'm not saying you have to describe everything you're having for breakfast all the time, but what makes you you? Bring that out in some way, shape, or form. Even if your channel has really nothing to do about that, it has everything to do with building a relationship. And this is not a B2B economy, it's not a B2C economy, it is a P2P, a person-to-person economy where we connect with other people who we resonate with, right? Okay, embrace your weird. That's what you gotta do. Embrace your weird. Now, when I think about April, and April, my wife, not last month, I think about the story that she told me when I was asking her about, well, how did you become a fan of the Backstreet Boys anyway? And she brought me back all the way to when she was 15 years old. She'd just broken up with her boyfriend. She was crying on the pillow. There was no Spotify, there was no YouTube or iTunes or even iPod at this time. Sorry, April, I'm dating you a little bit. But there was a song on the radio that played, and she said, it was a song I heard many times before, but because I was in this state of mind of having just gone through this terrible breakup, I just felt a connection to the song because every lyric in that song was describing everything I was going through at that time of life. And I was like, what song is that? And she said, it's Quit Playing Games with My Heart by the Backstreet Boys, right? But the big lesson here is that, yes, that thing was being played all the time, but because it resonated with her in that moment, in that state of mind, the lyrics really connected with her. So not only is it important to discover what the problems are and the pains of our audience, we need to know how to talk to them. We need to understand the lyrics. And this is a quote by a man named Jay Abraham that says, if you can define the problem better than your target customer, they will automatically assume you have the solution. You want a person to capture your video and go, oh my gosh, this person gets me. Finally, somebody understands exactly what I'm going through. And it's not just about knowing who you're speaking to, it's about understanding the lyrics that they will respond to. What words do they use to describe those problems? Just give that back to them, and you will automatically be that much further ahead in their eyes, right? So that's moment of activation number 2. We talked about bringing your personality in. That's number 1. Number 2 is really connecting on the language level with your audience. And I have a third way to convert an audience member into an active audience member. And that will take you back. We're going to go into the DeLorean to my junior year of college. And my junior year of college was interesting, right? Because I was in the marching band. And so, like, fall semester, it was always about band and architecture. I was in the studio. Nobody saw me outside of those worlds. But spring semester, I had all the time in the world. So I did what every college male student would do at the age of 20 with all that extra time. Any guesses? Who said drink? No. I played video games. That's right. And at this time of my life, I got into a game called World of Warcraft. Or WoW for short, and rightfully so, because WoW, I suffered grade-wise and spent 48 hours straight hanging out with my guild because we had a quest to go on, right? Like, literally every night was that. Now, if you don't know this game or you're not familiar with it, it's interesting. You come in here and you select between Alliance or Horde. You go into this virtual world, kind of like a metaverse, and then you interact and you go on these quests. And immediately, I knew that I was going to be hooked on this game. I knew because in the first 5 minutes, you do one simple little thing, you open a chest, you get gold, and then you increase your level experience from 1 to 2, you unlock new abilities, and then all of a sudden you forget to go to class. That's how it works. Similar, a little easier game is Angry Birds, right? This is level 1 of Angry Birds, by the way. 3 Angry Birds on the left-hand side, and then you have one bad piggy on this building. You hit it, you win. It's like the worst architecture I've ever seen. And then all of a sudden, points, stars, you forget to get your kids at school. So what are these games doing that we could utilize in our business, in our brands, in our YouTube channel? Small, quick wins. Small, quick wins. I know we want to do big things and help our audience in so many big ways, but we need to start small to go big, right? We need to start small to go big. Actually, quick story, I used to follow a lot of personal finance blogs back when RSS feeds were like a thing to subscribe to blogs. And I subscribed to almost all of them, all but one. There was one that I disliked because the language was a little bit different and I just didn't really resonate with this guy. His name was Ramit Sethi from IWillTeachYouToBeRich.com. And I was just like, I'm in this for the long game. This guy's crazy. But then all of a sudden, there were these things called blog carnivals where everybody was sharing articles from all the other bloggers. That was a way to collaborate. And there was one article that was getting passed around by Ramit that everybody was talking about. So I was like, fine, I'll read this article and I'll see what this is all about since everybody else is talking about it, right? Power of social proof. Well, I read this article and it was basically you can call your cable company, read the script that Ramit set out for you to save 20 to 25% on your cable bill. So I did that in 15 minutes. I saved 20% of my cable bill, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I've been missing out. This guy has some legit stuff that can help me. And I stopped reading all the other guys, and I started diving into Ramit stuff, ending up spending thousands of dollars over the years on his programs. But it wasn't because those programs attracted me. It was because he helped me out really quick right from the start. And when you consider personal finance blogs, it's like, okay, save 20% of your cable bill, 15 minutes, and you save hundreds of dollars per year, like immediately. Or these other guys who are like, hey, put 20 bucks into an account every, until you're 65, then you can enjoy it, right? Which one's going to attract me more right now? Ramit, right? So now I try to implement small, quick wins in my brand as often as I can. If you want to change somebody's life, start by changing their day first, all right? If you want to change somebody's life, start by changing their day first. All right, let's keep going. We're going to move up this pyramid. We're going to now convert people who are active in our audience, who are following, to then become a part of our connected community. Remember, community is where magic happens. It's where you're at a ballpark and the home team hits a home run to win the game. You're high-fiving and hugging people just simply because they're wearing the same ball cap as you. You don't even know who they are. That's what can happen in our communities as well. Now, I'm going to take you back in time again. Now, remember when I said I was a big baby when I was born? Well, I haven't really grown much since then. My parents thought I was going to be huge, and then I wasn't. Everybody kept growing, and I stopped. To give you some proof, this was my high school senior photo. And just to give you some perspective, a trumpet is 18 inches tall. Yeah, I was a short kid. So I got picked on a lot. I got bullied. But thankfully, I found refuge in the band because that's where all the other weirdos were. And so we could be all weirdos together. And that was cool. Unfortunately, I had really tall friends who loved to play basketball. So every day at recess, this was my view. And that wasn't fun. They invited me to play because they were my friends. But I always got picked last. I get it. And I never got past the ball. Therefore, I never got a chance to shoot. So even though I was on the court playing basketball, was I even really playing basketball? No, actually, I felt worse. How often are we inviting people into our communities, but not even making them feel recognized or making them feel like they belong? It's one thing to create a platform. It's another thing to create connections. And we need to help facilitate and create these connections. It starts with giving them attention, helping them understand that they are seen. That's just a human thing. We love to know that we are being seen. And then more so, making people feel like they belong to something, like there are other people like them here too. Remember, the weirdos in band all got together and we became friends. Now, I'm going to give you some strategies for engagement that are along these lines. My first and favorite one is actually not to ask questions. Yes, when you ask questions, you get answers, but instead, I want you to ask for the answer. There's a difference there. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, how many of you, let me see a raise of hands, how many of you watch game shows or have ever watched a game show on television? Hands up, please. Okay, keep your hand up if you've ever watched a game show by yourself at home. Why did more hands go up? That's weird. Now, keep your hand up. This is the last one. If, while watching a game show by yourself, you've blurted out the answer, right? Thank you. We're not going to win anything from the television screen. Why do we do that? Because we love to know that we're right. We love to know that we know what's going on. I mean, Jeopardy all day. I'm like, yes, I'm winning virtual money. That doesn't actually matter, but I feel good about myself, right? Okay, so we can offer that opportunity for our audience as well. Ask for the answer. You might already know the answer, and that's great. It's great that you know the answer. It's great that you're positioning yourself as an expert, but we also want to position ourselves as somebody who allows others to have an answer too, right? And so you can do that. Case in point, Steve Spangler. One of the OG YouTubers back in the day. Six Science was the name of his channel, still exists amongst other things. And when he started his YouTube channel, I listened to this on a social media podcast. He said that when he started his channel, he would do science videos to teach kids. And just like a good teacher, he would teach everything. He would suck in air from a balloon, and his voice would be really low. And he'd be like, that's sulfur hexafluoride. It's denser than gas, and that's why your voice is lower. And it's like, cool. And he would ask what most YouTubers were asking before, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. And he'd get the comments that you would all expect. First was always the comment. Then, where can I get that gas? And cool, that's it. Very, very low engagement. But he knew that engaging with his audience was going to be very important, so he switched it up. He did the experiment, and then he said, you tell me what happened in the comments, and I'll feature the best answer every week. And the comments and the engagement exploded. So much so that Steve Spangler was one of the first OG people asked to, by YouTube, to create a YouTube original because he had so much engagement in his audience. People were fighting over the answers, pulling out their chemistry books, trying to become the answer because Steve gave them a place to be heard and to be seen. And that was really, really smart. Another brand that's doing this very well, getting their audience involved, is Lego. In fact, obviously, this is a much bigger brand. However, did you know that in 2003, they were $800 million in debt? We almost lost Lego. Why were they in debt? Because they were pumping out so many products just because that's what they thought they had to do. How many of us are creating videos and trying to stay consistent just because that's what we think we have to do? That's going to get you in debt in a different kind of way with your mental game, right? So we don't want that to happen. Now, Lego is worth $150 billion, bigger than Hasbro and Mattel combined. They had a new CEO who came on and said, you know what, we're going to focus on what the fans want. We're going to focus and listen. This is where a lot of those brand deals have come in between Harry Potter and Mario and Lego and all that kind of stuff because they knew that that's what the audience wanted. Co-creation has been an important part of Lego's growth. They say, we actively encourage our fans to interact and suggest product ideas. While we have 120 staff designers, we potentially have 120,000 volunteer designers, their fans, we can access outside of the company to help us invent. Case in point, ideas.lego.com. Any one of us can create a Lego invention, upload it here, and if the community votes it up, Lego will manufacture that product on your behalf. And you'll get a cut of that. And check this out, number 4, DeLorean. Guess who made that? Not me, unfortunately, I wish. But I fell in love even more with the brand because they positioned me as somebody who, or they knew that they were just getting this particular audience in there. So of course I bought two, one to build and one to hold for value, and they're worth a lot now, which is pretty cool. But case in point, again, the lesson, get your audience involved in some of the decision making in your business and brand, because when people are involved, people will invest. Let me say that one more time. When people are involved, people will invest. Back in 2010, I created a niche website in the security guard training space. This was my most popular post I had ever published at the time. Hey, which logo for this new website do you like better, A or B? Now when I come out with books and stuff, I always do this because I want to get my audience involved and have them vote. And there's just so much engagement when you give people an opportunity to speak up. Here's our dear friend Amy Porterfield. She said, hey there, got a minute? I need a little font help. Can you tell me which font for the Social Love Weekly you like best? This is her brand new newsletter coming out. Now, do we think that one of the primo marketers of all time needs font help? No. But this is so smart because guess what? She's getting her audience to get involved, which triggers the algorithm, right? So that's number one. But number two, she's also sliding in there the fact that she has a newsletter coming out. A touch point without being aggressive. Super, super smart. So again, we're converting people to become a part of our community. We're getting them involved. Another way to invite our community into something special is what I like to call the factory tour. Back in the American Revolution, when all of these factories were popping up, cranking things out, textiles and whatnot, they were very closed up. They were very secretive. Nobody was allowed inside of there except the people who worked in the business and investors. However, they changed it up. Somebody had the bright idea to open up the factory doors and let people in these tours to see how the company does what they do. How many of you ever been on a brewery tour or a chocolate factory tour or something like that, right? Thank you. So much fun, and you take back so much information, right? Not just, hey, they put quality time and work into their stuff, but you also share that with other people too. And now in the social media space, you definitely take your phone out and show those things off to other people. And now you are a brand ambassador in that way because simply they open up their doors. So when you go to Krispy Kreme, for example, what do you see when you go into Krispy Kreme? This glass panel and all the adults and kids looking at the little glaze go on top of the oil and the donuts in there, right? You've seen that before. It's just so fascinating. We as humans are just so curious. So we as creators can feed into that with our audience and get them involved, right? I used to publish a monthly income report sharing line by line where I was making money, where I was losing money. This put me on the map back in 2008 to 2010. Gary Vee, Ask Gary Vee. This was simply a version of that, right? Let's have a guy named D-Rock follow him around and show off just what he does. You're getting an inside look and you're able to pull something out that you wouldn't normally get if that didn't happen. So open up the factory doors. Talk about how you do what you do every once in a while. People will be interested, especially those who are part of the community who's already involved in what it is that you do and what it is that you share. Next, create connection opportunities. That means create meetups, create events like this one, create virtual events. Again, opportunities for your audience to connect with each other. If you go to meetup.com and you type AFOL, A-F-O-L, you'll find thousands of meetings between adult fans of Lego. That's like niche in a niche in a niche. And this way, people who are adult fans of Lego can connect with each other and find each other. There's also events that are put on that are not Lego putting them on, but fans that put them on. And guess what? Lego doesn't say, hey, you're not allowed to use our IP. They say, hey, what can we do to help you? Which is so awesome, right? So Brick Fair, Virginia, Brick Con, we got Brick World, all these brick things. And it's super cool. So I've done the same thing. I will travel somewhere and rent out a coffee shop and just bring fans there. And it's so cool. And I just sit back and I might be talking to one person, but it's actually, the benefit is them finding each other. I did this once. I went to speak at an event in St. Louis, and I rented out a pizza joint. And there were hundreds of people there. It was super fun. And at the end of the night, I thought I got to everybody. I was shaking hands, taking pictures. But there was one woman at the end of the night. Her name was Tanya. I saw her name tag, and I felt bad because I didn't see her all night. And I was like, oh, maybe I went up to her, and I was like, hey, you know what? I'm sorry. Maybe we can find some time to chat later. And she's like, Pat, don't get upset when I say this, but I didn't come here to see you. And I was like, oh. And she's like, no, don't get me wrong. I hear you every day in the car on my commute, but I never get a chance to find people just like me. So I wanted to use this time as much as possible to find other people who speak the same language as me, who get it, who are in the entrepreneurial world with me, which is super cool. We do formal events like meetups and things like that. And this is Let Go Day, which was back, this is June 17th. Every year I celebrate the day I got let go from my job. Best day ever. And this was live streamed because I want to bring people in on that. I did a bigger event in San Diego not too long ago, and now we have a community, a virtual community using circle.so, which sort of acts like a Facebook group, but with a little bit more control. Another thing you can do is to put the spotlight on your people. This is my all-time favorite thing to do to help bring the community together even more. Even though you want to talk to and communicate with every single person in the community, it's very difficult to do that. But a way to have a feeling like that is to pull a few special members from your audience and highlight them. Make them the hero of the story. This is very Donald Miller's story brand, if you've ever heard of that book. Make the audience the hero of the story. So I created a podcast episode where I invited 3 of my podcasting students on to talk about how they made their podcast. Now, I didn't invite them on and ask them, hey, tell me why you love Power Up Podcasting, which is the name of my course. Tell me why you love my course so much. You don't want to approach it that way. I approached it like this. Hey, tell me why you wanted to start a podcast. Tell me what your biggest challenges were in starting a podcast. And now everybody listening has this trigger in their head going, oh my gosh, I have the same challenges as Dr. B, who's deathly afraid of technology, or Dr. Shannon in the middle there, who was taking an offline business online and wasn't sure if a podcast was the right route, or Rob from Disney Travel Secrets, who was so concerned about his business and how much time the podcast was going to take, he wasn't sure if it was going to increase ROI. Well, he told a story about how he increased his ROI 342% because of his podcast. Dr. B talks about how she's helping people with ADHD in over 33 different countries around the world. So now everybody listening is basically getting access to the most genuine organic testimonials that one could ever ask for to help promote the product. And when I came out with this episode, it was during a launch week. We made over $150,000 directly from this podcast episode. And I had people email me literally saying, hey, Pat, you better thank Dr. B because she sold me into your course. I could sell all day, but not as well as one of my own students can on my behalf. And you have this beautiful thing called a platform to be able to showcase some of your students and some of your audience members. All right, to quote the famous philosopher Drake, we started from the bottom, and now we are here. Now, some of your community members will become superfans just kind of automatically, which is beautiful, right? When people feel connected, they want to be even more connected. However, there's one thing that I would recommend to do to nudge people right at the top, and that is to create memorable moments by surprise. The by surprise part is the most important part, right? If you say goodnight to your spouse every night, good night, honey, I love you, good night, honey, I love you, good night, honey, I love you, every night, it doesn't become less special, but it kind of does because it's just expected, right? Except there's that one time she doesn't say it back and you're like, are you mad at me? But she fell asleep early. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. It's the by surprise. It's you going into her office at 3:48 p.m. on a random Tuesday with a box of chocolates just because. That's what gets talked about. That's what gets remembered. And we can offer those kinds of moments in our brands and business too. My favorite way to do this is something called the What's Up. Just a super informal, casual, personalized, unexpected message. And literally, you could take your phone, find a person who recently commented on one of your posts on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, send them a direct message with a video, and just say, hey, John, thank you so much for your comment on the latest post. I just want to say thanks for following. I appreciate you. Every Friday, I go on a 60-minute walk, and I have my dogs in one hand and my phone in the other, and I'm just doing that for 60 minutes. I can get through 90 to 120 people, and it has a 90% response rate. People reply, and they're blown away. Some things in our business don't need to be scalable. But when you make time and you create boundaries around these opportunities to really connect with your audience, it literally can blow their mind, and they will become fans even more. In fact, they will share that moment, they will remember that moment. And I had a couple people come up to me yesterday saying, Pat, I remember when you replied to my email, because it's unexpected. So superfans, VIPs, and platinum members got access to this book already. Thank you for checking it out. I hope you enjoy it. You're welcome. Now, I've recently applied these principles in a brand new niche. In January of 2021, I created a YouTube channel about a brand new hobby I was into called Pokemon. And I was not a Pokemon person growing up, but I fell in love with it because of my kids. They've since stopped doing Pokemon, but I have definitely not stopped. I created a Pokemon YouTube channel called Deep Pocket Monster, We hit 100,000 subs in 11 days, or 11 months in 23 days. And we just hit 200,000 subs yesterday. How though? Well, and here's a little bit of analytics. 50 million views, almost 100K in earnings already. Because I lean into what does this audience want to see? How can I make them feel special? How can I make them feel like they're a part of something? I don't pretend to be an expert because I'm not. But I do interact with my audience and try to make them feel like they're a part of something. And what do? They bring more people over too. I'm now, because of this brand, an ambassador for a binder company called VaultX. I am now getting Pokemon to send me product before anybody else gets it to open on the channel, which, by the way, gets a lot of views when that happens. That's great. I love that. And I'm now an advisor for a collectible-related channel at Rare Candy, which is pretty cool. They're trying to compete with eBay in the collectible space. And now I'm an advisor for the company and own shares of this company. But really, it's about this. The human-to-human connection and sharing that special language together, right? And on the outside, people are like, you guys are weird. You're like adults who follow cartoons on cardboard. Yeah, and we love it. Here's a quick little video to end this from one of the fans who interacted with me at one point because, again, it's that human-to-human interaction.
So Pat Flynn actually gave me and Ian his 100K sub coins, because I had mentioned to Pat Flynn that I was watching the stream when he hit 100K subs. So he gave us these 2 coins. He gave us his custom sleeves. And then the cool thing, the even better thing, is that he gave Ian a Charizard from the Japanese Starbirth set, which I thought was amazing. He didn't have to. So Pat Flynn, thank you again for giving my son this Japanese Charizard from Starbirth. Moments like that at that event made the event for us. It wasn't so much the pop-up shop itself, it was the community and the people that we literally bumped into.
And it doesn't matter what level you're at in your business, you can get people to feel like that. You all have that ability. So go ahead, make people feel special, and go build some super fans.
In just a moment, we're about to go into our 3rd session with Amy Porterfield with the new rules for online course creation. But I do just want to propose a toast for the fact that you made it this far in this video. You're a legend, like for real. Obviously, content like this is not just about entertainment. This is deep dive education. And I just want to acknowledge you for the time you're investing here. I know you could be doing a lot of different stuff. So on behalf of myself and the Think Media team, super grateful. And if you want to subscribe and turn on notifications or hit the like button, that really does help YouTube know that this video is valuable and helps it spread in the algorithm. Now, we're going to get into this session with Amy Porterfield in just a second, but Pat Flynn just crushed it, right? And that recording was actually from our event called Grow with Video Live. It happens in Las Vegas, and right now there's just a wait list for the next one. So if you go to growwithvideolive.com, and I'll make sure to link to that website in the description down below, you can sign up to be notified. We've had speakers like Dave Ramsey, Gary Vaynerchuk, Patrick Bet-David, Cody Sanchez, Alex Hermosi. It's always a powerful event for building your influence with online video, and always the latest tactics and tips. But even more than that, the networking, the connections, the community, the collaboration. And so the next one is not scheduled yet, but if you jump on the wait list, you always get access to the best pricing, the best seats, the early bird specials, and any leaked information coming out of this event. I think we've done it for 5 or 6 years now, and I'm excited for the next one that'll be happening in Las Vegas, Nevada. And so if you go to growwithvideolive.com, we'll send you information and you can see if that next one is something you're interested in and something that you think would be valuable for you, your business, and your social and whatever your online goals are. Now, we got to get into this session with Amy Porterfield, and there are many different ways to monetize your influence online, but online course creation is truly one of the best. Of course, there's a lot of shady people that do it in a sketchy way, or sometimes the online courses aren't great. But what I love about Amy Porterfield is the level of character and integrity and the ethic she encourages people like you and me to approach of not just how to make an online course that changed lives, changes lives, but also is incredibly profitable and makes a big difference.
What is the opportunity right now with online courses?
The numbers don't need to be astronomical for you to make a great living. Even a small creator can make a very big impact. The best courses out there are where you are not leaving any stone unturned. You're willing to say, this is exactly how you do it step by step by step. I think people think they need the competitive edge. You don't. What you need is a 10% edge. So let's talk about that real quick. I need to be 10% ahead of those I serve. Boom, you got your course. So you got to know what you want. Do you want to pick up your kids at 3 o'clock? Do you want to work from home and never have to commute? You've got to get really clear on what you want. And it has to mean something to you. Mine was, I never want a boss for the rest of my life.
How do you find your unique angle in a world where you're like, man, there's already other people with online courses or creating content like I am? Amy Porterfield is really a legend in the space. New York Times best-selling author, prolific content creator, incredible history and reputation in the industry. And I'm super honored to have her here today talking about really the opportunity with online courses, some of the changes that we need to know, and her best tips for getting started. Amy, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
So I'm super fired up to have you on the show. And I'm curious, what is the opportunity right now with online courses?
It's a huge opportunity. You know, I want to address real fast that people will say there's so much competition with courses. So many people have courses or teaching courses. And how do you get seen and heard in such a noisy world? And what I've noticed, I've taught thousands and thousands of students how to create digital courses. And you only need a tiny sliver of the internet to pay attention, to make a huge impact, and to be very profitable with courses. So what you need to know is that courses are alive and well. People are searching every single day to learn how to do this, how to do that, whatever it might be. And we'll talk about some topics that are really working. But even a small creator can make a very big impact when they find their audience and they go all in with that topic that they know they can teach and make an impact. So I just want to say there's room for all of us in this space. And I've seen it with so many of my students.
Has there been changes in the industry now that you've been doing it for a while that we should be aware of, and maybe some of the new rules?
Yeah. So I have been creating and teaching courses for 15 years. And so I've seen some changes. Interesting enough, though, I've also seen things like battle-tested strategies that worked 15 years ago that still work today. And I love that. I'm a girl that I like to find what works. I'm like a dog with a bone, find what works and just keep going forward with that. And I've been able to do that through my own courses and with my students. But some of the changes I've seen, number one, attention span. It has gotten shorter and shorter every single year. So what I tell my students is if you're creating a course, let's not make hour-long videos inside of a course. And that used to be 15 years ago. I bet you remember we used to buy courses and watch for hours in the same video. Now it's 10-minute videos. If you've got an hour-long training, we're breaking those up. People need to feel like they're getting through the course really quickly. So attention span is important. Also, how you're marketing the courses. I've seen so many different ways, from challenges to boot camps to video sales letters to webinars. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. And what I've seen change is now we're kind of combining. So let me give you an example. I've used webinars to sell my courses for 15 years now, and they still work really, really well. But I've had to tweak that a little bit. Now I do a boot camp for about 2 weeks leading into a webinar. We've seen a 20% conversion for people in the boot camp versus, let's say, a 10% conversion with a webinar alone. So we have started to see pairing different strategies has worked really well.
We'll kind of maybe jump to marketing, because I would love for definition for the audience of what is the difference between a webinar, a challenge, and a boot camp.
I love this question. Yes. Okay. And also let's talk webinars. A lot of my students that are new, they'll say, so should I do webinars to grow my email list? And I'll say, no, let's keep the webinars for selling. And so a webinar, the way I teach it, it's in, let's say, an hour-long webinar. And for the first 45 minutes, you are giving immense value. I have a saying, no matter if they buy or not, they walk away feeling inspired, excited, and driven to take action, no matter if they buy or not. If I say that before a live webinar and I teach my students to do the same, I'm in a place of service. And so I do a better webinar knowing it's not all about if they buy or not. And so a webinar, although, is to sell, value first and then to sell. So that's a webinar. That's how I look at a webinar. And it's a great list builder. I don't use it to just grow my list, but a huge benefit is people are signing up for it. They get on the webinar. And then after the webinar, why a webinar is so valuable is the email marketing campaign that you can do. So let's say I sell 100 people on the live webinar. I could sell 300 over the next week through email marketing, whether they attended the webinar or not, just by signing up and getting their interest. So there's a whole strategy there, but webinars are very powerful. But let's talk boot camp. A boot camp is something I love to do where let's say I take 3 lessons I'm going to teach over the next week. And I do it pretty close, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday. So I go into the next week. I'm teaching something around one core topic. How to get started with a digital course might be one of my boot camps. But I'm showing up live, I'm teaching, and then I might give them an action item and we're talking about it in the group. We might have some prizes, some fun things we're doing, but I am highly engaged. And then from there, though, I don't think a boot camp is enough. I will then follow up with a webinar at the end of the boot camp. We'll call it a special extra training, but essentially it's a webinar. A challenge is very similar, but a challenge, the way I look at it, is you're getting into my challenge and you're doing something every single day that you normally wouldn't do. And you're doing it online, or you're doing it with your family, or you're doing it whatever you're doing, but then you're reporting back and saying, I did it. So there's a lot of accountability and getting you out of your comfort zone. So a challenge is slightly different than a boot camp, but there's a lot of similarities. But I'd still do a webinar at the end of a challenge to sell my course.
I love that breakdown. And you already kind of touched on this idea that there's a big opportunity right now.
Yes.
Even though it feels like there's a lot of competition. But the truth is there is a lot of competition.
There is.
One of the things that you help people with is helping them find their unique angle to stand out.
Yes.
For that individual, maybe touch on the mindset piece of getting into this, but also how do you find your unique angle in a world where you're like, man, there's already other people with online courses or creating content like I am?
So the first thing is that mindset right there. There's already people doing what I want to do. If I or you had that mind, we do very things that a lot of people do. YouTube, courses, there's a lot of people teaching that kind of thing out there. If we thought that years ago, we'd never be sitting here with the success we have today. So the first mindset shift I want people to make is, who cares who's doing it? It's cliche to say, but no one does it quite like you, but it's very true. And again, I want to go back to what I said earlier. You need a tiny sliver of the internet to pay attention. So think about it. You have $1,000 course and 20 people buy it. That is a lot of money. I think you can get 20 people on the internet with over 7 billion people in this world to buy your course. So we need to be realistic about these numbers and know that even though there's Gary V's in the world that can sell hundreds of thousands, that's not necessary to make a beautiful living and have more freedom in your life. And the reason I teach how to create courses is because I believe they give you more freedom. They allow you to create a business from scratch. You become your own boss. You can call the shots. It's exactly why I got into this. So there's so many benefits, and the numbers don't need to be astronomical for you to make a great living. But to get back to your question, now I lost it. What was it?
So then how do you find your unique angle
Yes.
and stand out and maybe find that uniqueness?
Yes. So one, we're not going to focus on who else is doing it. We're going to let that go. But also, let's say, so I teach courses in so many different areas, from pet grooming to relationships to real estate to leadership. I mean, there's to how to groom your giraffe at a zoo. Yeah, there's a $63,000 course out there. Like, she's made $63,000 with teaching how to take care of your giraffe at a zoo. So there's so many different topics. The thing is, you need to ask yourself, where is my sweet spot? Where have I gotten results for myself or for others? And am I willing to teach everything I did to get those results? So you don't have to have like a unique edge to it. You don't have to say, well, I'm going to teach leadership, but I've got this really cool strategy that no one's ever taught. You just need to be willing to say, I got results for myself or someone else, and I'm willing to teach it, and break it down step by step. The best courses out there are where you are not leaving any stone unturned. You're willing to say, this is exactly how you do it step by step by step. So that's the thing. I think people think they need the competitive edge. You don't. What you need is a 10% edge. So let's talk about that real quick. A 10% edge is, I am 10% ahead of those that I want to serve, and I'm going to show them the way. You don't need more certification, more time, more training. A lot of people, when they get into my world, they think, I probably should get more certifications or learn this or go back to college or get with a coach and build this up before I do it. No. You already know enough to create a digital course. And in your mind, if you can change their mindset to say, I just need a 10% edge. I need to be 10% ahead of those I serve. Boom, you got your course.
That's brilliant. And what are some examples of students and niches? You've already mentioned some. What are the opportunities and maybe some of the unknown ones, and maybe also some of the biggest opportunities? If someone was going to use a framework for trying to make their decision of where they're going to plant their flag, how do they narrow that down to find their topic and their niche?
It's such a great question. So I want to give an example. I have 2 students that created a course around real estate, but this is what happened. They created a podcast all about real estate, how they were getting clients, what their systems and processes look like. And one day they decided to create a lead magnet that they use in their business. And it was a template that they use on a daily basis to track their clients and the people, their prospects. So they thought, this would be a great lead magnet. They put it out there and their audience loved it. They're like, this is the greatest thing. Do you have more templates like that? And they thought they were in Digital Course Academy program, and they thought that could actually be our course. Because some people just struggle with, what would I even create a course about? But what they did is they practiced with something. They tried something. They put a lead magnet out there and they waited for their response. And the response was really good. So they decided, I'm going to create a course on, we're just going to put all of our templates that we use in our business, and we're going to teach people how to use the templates. That was the whole course. They are almost at $1 million mark with course sales. And it's all because they just listen to their audience. So that's the number one thing. A lot of my course creators, what I tell them is we got to be creating weekly original content to understand what our audience wants. A YouTube channel is one thing that we definitely suggest, or a podcast or a blog, so that if you're putting out your weekly content, your audience will tell you what course they want. And I think that's one of the strategies that's worked really well. So to talk real fast about different topics and courses, one of my students has a few actually have a course on how to sleep train a baby. So they are not necessarily the expert of all experts, but one of my students, she has 3 babies, and you can relate to this. She's done really well to get those babies to sleep at night. She knows the strategies she used, the different things that they've tried. And so she created a course on that. It doesn't mean that she's the expert that everyone calls on. She just knows her way of doing it. And she started teaching it through weekly original content. And then she created a course. One more example. I have a student, her name's Kelly, and she was an attorney. And Kelly decided to create a course she worked one-on-one. This is one thing that your audience can relate to. A lot of people start out with one-on-one coaching, consulting, but we all know that you can only go so far with one-on-one. You're one person. There's only so much money you can make or so many hours in a day. So a lot of my students want to transition from one-on-one to course creation. What Kelly did was she had a really odd but effective time management strategy she created as an attorney. It worked for her. She kind of took a little of this, a little of that, and she did it for a while. Her 10% edge is she dialed in her productivity as an attorney, and she thought, I could teach this to other people. So she started one-on-one. And then what happened is there's only so much time in a day or so much money you can make. So she created a course on this very odd strategy she used, and people loved it because she had such a connection to it. It wasn't earth-shattering, mind-blowing, like that's the coolest thing ever. It just worked for her. And she found the audience that needed that kind of strategy as well. $213,000 later in a digital course, she's doing well. So I guess what I want to really hit home on, it doesn't need to be the next biggest, craziest idea that will work. You just need to be able to show people how to get results, and then find a way to talk to them so they trust you to teach them how to do it.
And that's so encouraging. And I actually want to ask you about the mindset when starting. You're at 9 figures.
Yes.
Which is just wild. Like, especially thinking about that person who's at the bottom of the mountain.
Right.
But I love that I read part of your story was that your first launch brought in $267.
Yes.
That's a long way before 9 figures.
Amen.
And so what is the mindset? I mean, you are so connected to your students and the people you serve. So you know kind of the fears and the different mindsets. It's just so overwhelming when you start thinking like, I want to do this, but there's so much so many pieces, and who am I?
Yes.
Imposter syndrome and all these different things. Speak to that. What is the mindset when getting started in this?
So you are right. I made $267 and then I cried for an entire week and told my husband, I am not cut out to be an entrepreneur. I need to go grovel back for my job. Like, this is not going to work. So I know every insecurity and fear that comes from creating an online business. I've absolutely been there. And what happened when I made $267 is I realized, okay, I could either get back to this and figure out how to make it work, or I could go back to a life I do not want. So you got to know what you want. Do you want to pick up your kids at 3:00? Do you want to build your own business so you never have a boss again? Do you want to work from home and never have to commute? You've got to get really clear on what you want. And it has to mean something to you. It doesn't matter if anyone else thinks it's a cool idea or good idea, just you. Okay. Mine was, I never want a boss for the rest of my life. I've been working in corporate since the day I got out of college, and I just knew I was ready to be my own boss. So getting clear about what you want and making sure it means something to you is what is going to get you past your first launch that maybe won't go as planned. So $267 launch, cried for a week, thought I wasn't cut out to be an entrepreneur. But what got me back in the game is I thought, I want this life. I know I want it. And my secret is you've got to learn to love what it takes to get what you want. Layla Hermosi first said that, at least the first time I heard it. And I thought, wait a second, you got to learn to love what it takes to get what you want. And a lot of what it takes is failure. A lot of what it takes is long nights, confusion. A lot of my students get stuck with course creation because they don't know the next step to take or the next right step. All you need to do is keep taking action. Action creates clarity. So the mindset of getting into the game, creating the course, and all the doubts, all the imposter syndrome will never go away. Do you agree with that? Do you think imposter syndrome ever goes away?
No.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm still deeply insecure.
Same, my friend. You were giving me a compliment. I'm going to admit something I don't want to admit. You said something really nice, like, you're Amy Porterfield. You are the top of your game. And in my head, I'm like, what is he saying? So I deal with it every single day. However, I'm very clear about what I want. And I know it's going to take me showing up even when I don't feel confident. So I'm just going to show up anyway. That's what it takes to create courses, memberships, group coaching. So what I learned from working for Tony Robbins forever is 80% of this is mindset. I'll teach you strategies all day long to create courses and build your email list. I've got them all. But if I can't get you to think, I am going to figure this out no matter what, my strategies don't matter. So I'm glad you asked about mindset. I think it's more important than anything.
That's so strong. And I love all of that advice. But now let's talk a little bit about the practical. If we just covered a few steps, and in the show notes, we'll look up some resources and some different things. You've got some great stuff for people to go to next steps. But now, if I am saying, yes, I'm watching this video because I want to create an online course, and I'm wanting that 1, 2, 3 of what are the first couple steps?
Yes. Okay, good. The first one is you got to figure out your sweet spot. We talked a little about this so we can go through it quickly. The sweet spot is 4 quadrants. Number 1, your 10% edge. Where have you gotten results for yourself or somebody else that you're willing to teach? That's the first one. The second quadrant is where are people spending money? So we've got to think about, are there books about the topic you want to teach? Are there podcasts about it? Are there other courses? If the answer is yes, there are, that's a really good thing. People often think, oh my gosh, I need to think of something new that no one's ever done. Don't do that. The fact that it's been done successfully is a really good thing. The third quadrant is your audience's pain point. Now, I often say pain point or desire, but I lean more toward if you know their challenge, if you know their pain points, and you can create a course to combat that, that is going to be hugely valuable. So we got to get clear on what your expertise is. And then also what is the pain point of your audience? Those need to marry each other. So we've got those 3 quadrants. The fourth quadrant is what will bring you joy. One time I created an entire course on how to teach Facebook marketing or actually Facebook ads. And this was many years ago. And I finished the course and it was the last thing I wanted to talk about. I had kind of outgrown it. I had already had someone running my ads. I didn't want to talk about it. Created an entire course, never saw the light of day. I really think it's important that whatever you create, you're going to eat, sleep, breathe it. You got to love it. And so those 4 quadrants are your sweet spot. That's the first step you're going to do. The second step is we need an audience. One of the things that stops people in their tracks from creating a course is they'll say, but Amy, I have no one to market to. And I always say there's no silver bullet here. Whether you're going to create a course, a membership, a group coaching, mastermind, all of it requires an audience. So we've got to focus on growing our email list. You don't want to launch a course without an email list. Now, what I teach my students is let's get a list of 500 people. If you have 500 people on your email list, you can make great money with a digital course if you nurture that list. So we're not talking about hundreds of thousands. 500 people on your email list is your first goal. And how do you do that? Well, we're going to use our social media to talk about a great lead magnet, some kind of giveaway. We talk about it often. We find different ways to talk about it. We start getting people on our email list. We're not going to overcomplicate it. So that's the second thing that we need an audience. Social media and an email list is important here. And so then from there, I think it's important to remember you can outline your course. You can get all the details together, but you do not need to create it before you launch it. So a lot of what I teach is I teach people how to create a course and how to market it, but we're going to create the outline. We're going to get clear on what we want to do. ChatGPT has become a best friend of many of my course creators, helps with the outline, helps with detailing it out. You got to know what you're selling, but let's not create it before we make money, because sometimes it doesn't work. Like my $267 launch, you can go back to the drawing board, tweak some things before you spend time and money creating it. So I always say, launch the course, and then you can create it week by week and drip each module. There's nothing like putting a little fire under your feet that I made money with this course. Now I better create it. So you'll get it done once you launch it. But I always say, let's create the course after we launch it.
Man, these are some great tips. And in the second part of our conversation, I want to go deeper in email marketing. And you've given us such great advice for kind of getting started. I feel like this is almost a shift though towards more of an advanced conversation for those who maybe already have an online course, who have been doing this for a while, because one of the things you say is that 85% of your revenue come from just 2 digital courses.
Yes.
I'm curious, what have you learned about the power of focus and creating flagship and signature products? And I even personally have been there, and I wonder, many listening to this, if they've been doing this for a while, they might have 46 different products on their website. They've got this funnel, that funnel, to this thing, to that thing, and that website's broken because how could you possibly manage it all? Or all these different trickles. How did you get that focus? Do you think that's important? And yeah, what arrived you at just really focusing on the 2? And do you think that sometimes entrepreneurs fall into that issue of being too diluted?
I love this question. I believe my secret to success is that I am known for something, and I'm known for how to create and launch digital courses. The reason I'm known for it is because I've gone all in for 15 years of doing this. Mm-hmm. Now, what the challenge is, why most people don't do it this way, is entrepreneurs love variety, right? We love to start things. We love big ideas. We love to get out there and let's try this, let's try that. And the challenge is then you're never known for anything. And when a topic comes up, your name's not at the top of the list. So what I do know, and this is not bragging, this is just years of experience. If someone's in a room and says, I want to create a digital course, do you know anyone who can help me? My name will be at the top of that list. But that didn't happen by accident. It's because I've stayed in my lane and done the same thing over and over again. Sometimes do I want to do something else, get a little bored? I don't know if I get bored, but I want to do something else. Yes, it becomes a hobby. You don't have to make money with everything you want to do in this life. And so my secret, yes, has been one thing, go all in. And for me, it's Digital Course Academy, one program I have. But here's the thing. Years ago, I used to do a whole lot more. And I was always overwhelmed, always confused about what I should be focusing on. You're right. Things broke down a lot. My team felt very overwhelmed and stretched too thin. And I didn't enjoy what I was doing. This is around 2011. So I know the difference. So that's when I said, okay, less is more. So I live by a motto that less is more. I found what worked. And it took me a while. It took me a few years to say, oh, this is what people are responding to the most. And then I had the discipline to go all in. Now, every year we make the course better, our marketing better, the course better. We tinker with it. We try new things. Like, let me give you an example. I've been doing this for 15 years, but just last year, we did all of our webinars in a big fancy studio. You know, those studios with all the Zoom people behind you. And we went to North Carolina or South Carolina to do it, one of the Carolinas. And it was a big deal, but I wanted to stretch myself and try something new. So I'm always reinventing myself, doing new things. But it always comes down to the same course I'm promoting. That I really do think takes discipline.
That's so powerful to think about the power of focus. I know for us too, because of the progression of things, we've gone deep in YouTube, but eventually we started dipping our toes into people asked, how did you build your email list? So we created this program that ended up being pretty profitable, but just a fraction of what we were doing with our main YouTube course. And then it was so, being a small town kid, college dropout, this program was earning $25,000 a month reoccurring.
That's
revenue.
a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And so thinking about this though, it was like, we should sunset this. We should actually shut this down. But I was terrified.
Yes.
But by doing that, we sunset that program and then had the best year ever as we went all in, getting back to our main program called Video Ranking Academy. And over the years, we had like micro products, which I guess there could be maybe like, you guess you'd call them lead, you could call them tripwires or low ticket or tiny offers. But we had like Crush collabs, Inner Circle, YouTube Hypergrowth Blueprint, And eventually it was about like 15 different things on our website.
Wow.
And then getting it down to like, we have one program and now we have like 3 levels on the one program, but we have learned this the hard way as well and the painful way. And so I love that insight. Talk a little bit about flagship signature products and the difference between that. And are you a proponent of like a tiny offer, breaking off a piece that could lead to your course? Do you ever have holiday sales on lower ticket things or?
Yeah. So I am a fan of experimenting with things like that, as long as you keep your eye on the prize and know what your moneymaker is. But we have a program that's $500. It's List Builder Society. It's on Evergreen. So that's another thing. We have one program on Evergreen, meaning we sell it every day. And then we do one big launch for Digital Course Academy in the fall every year. And there's pros and cons with that. I actually want to point something out. Having a majority of my revenue come in late September is very risky. It's something we've looked at, probably will change over time. So I love that we're having this conversation because not everything in my business is perfect, of course, right? I might have had a $20 million year, but I could tell you 10 things that I'd really like to change. So it's important when you're looking at other people's businesses to know like nothing's perfect, nothing's great, and we all want to make it better. But getting back to the point, so I've got this course that is on Evergreen and then I've got this live launch. But with that, I love to experiment with smaller offers or we did, for the first time a few years ago, we did a Black Friday deal with List Builder Society. And we didn't discount it, but we added a program that I had expired, but it was a great program. Same thing. I knew I had too much, so I took it off. But then I thought we could bring it back for a special promotion. So I love mixing things up and trying things like that. I love a tripwire. But where is your main focus going to be? Where is your core competency? That's what's most important. And here's one thing to think about mindset wise. Why are you doing it? If you're bored, you want variety, you want to try something new, that's not why we should be creating new things. It's how can I enhance the core thing I'm doing in my business?
That's brilliant. Now, eventually people want to sell their online course, but one of the things you teach people with is how to create like an irresistible offer.
Yes.
And if you're listening to this, a really good question, you're like, okay, but am I going to sell my online course or am I making an offer? What's the difference between an online course and an offer?
No one's ever asked me this question. It's one of my favorite topics. In my course, it's module 4 is my favorite module to talk about this. So I love that you said that. So you've got a digital course. That is a product that you sell. But an irresistible offer is everything around that. So let me give you an example. So you've got your course, we call it your core program, but also you have bonuses. Bonuses are part of an offer. You've got a show up live on my webinar bonus. You've got a fast action bonus for 48 hours in the middle of a launch when things get a little tired. You've got a cart close bonus for everyone on the fence. Whatever you want to do, bonuses are part of your offer. Your refund policy is part of your offer. Are you going to do 2 weeks? 60 days, whatever it might be, but getting clear on what your refund policy is, and you communicate it very clearly when you're promoting part of your offer. Your price point. So back in the past, I don't do this anymore, but I used to do this. I had a VIP level and an independent study. That was part of my offer. You can get in on 2 different levels. Your payment plan, that's part of your offer. Are you going to allow people to do a 12-month payment plan? You're going to get more money if you do, but it's going to come in slower. Part of your offer. And then any kind of community you offer, that's part of your offer too. Do they get 10 weeks with you in a private Facebook group? Part of your offer. So your irresistible offer is all of that. And you have to be really mindful of each piece of that and then build it into your marketing. That's how you create an offer where you stand out versus somebody else. They're selling a course. You're creating an irresistible offer.
Man, what a great breakdown. And I want to ask you, one of the things I love, I was, on your website, and I followed you for probably a decade and seen you at different events, and your brand seems to be very intentional. Mm-hmm. And has, from my perception, you've got a very high trust, high authority, strong brand, visuals, the language you use, the copy. How have you thought about that? Getting to ask you, how do you think about branding and legacy?
I will say that it kind of came together over the years. And one thing I have to my benefit is 15 years behind this business, where a lot of people, especially my audience, brand is very overwhelming to them, but they're in their first or second year of business. So it's not going to make sense. It's trial and error and experimenting. Does this feel good? Does that feel good? And really, what I love about entrepreneurship is it's so much personal development, right? Learning who you are and what you stand for. So one thing about my brand that I've gotten criticism for is you're too polished, Amy. You're too kind of put together. You should come on with no makeup and a messy bun and in your sweats. I'm not that girl. Yeah. And so, of course, I've tried it and I was like, okay, I need to be more casual. I'm like, this is not who I am. So because I've gotten older, it comes with age as well. I'm like, this is me. This is me on a daily basis. So take it or leave it. So learning who you are and what you stand for and doubling down on that builds a beautiful brand and a legacy. I'll look back and I know if I look at my business and my brand, that is who I am. There's no faking it anymore. There's not an Amy Porterfield. Well, I was going to say there's not an Amy Porterfield at home and at business. A little bit. We all are a little bit more lax and, I'm a little bit sillier maybe in my personal life, but this is who I am in my brand. And once I owned it, it all started coming together. So it's all about personal development that I think really creates a beautiful brand, knowing who you are.
So that's really encouraging because if I'm hearing you right, would you say if you're just starting, you probably should not overthink it?
No.
And it's very overrated.
Thank you. And I'm going to remember that you said that because that's exactly how I feel. It's overrated. Don't overthink it. I'd rather you think about how do I give immense value? How do I build my email list with great lead magnets that people can't get enough of? I think the brand, when we overthink it in the beginning, we're thinking about our image too much. Mm-hmm. The brand comes together when the value's there.
Okay. And then to you, what would you consider though the elements of your brand today? I guess, do you at this stage though think about colors, collaborations? What are the elements in your perspective? The audio production value of your podcast? How to, maybe at a more advanced level, what you just transfer these details to your team of, and sometimes you could call this company culture, but that's not what we do here, or that's how we do it here. What are some of those brand values for you?
Yes, that I do. And I think the longer you've been in business and the bigger you get, I think it becomes more important, such as I've got a podcast and the audio quality is a big deal to me. Like I would never put out something that wasn't really crisp and really good or nicely edited. That stuff matters to me.
Was it super polished at the start?
No, absolutely not. And I literally read word for word a script in the beginning. Like I cringe when I see the first episodes because I wanted to write everything out because I was too nervous. So and my audio wasn't great. I've got this beautiful studio now in my home. I didn't have any of that before. Mm-hmm. So I think this happens over time. But when I think about my brand, I think about brand personality. What's the personality of my brand? Compassion is number one. We have company values. You have no idea what somebody's going through. Everyone's doing the very best they can. We subscribe to that. So through my writing, through my social social media, through my personality. I want people, when they think of my brand, that is a compassionate brand that cares deeply about us. So those different things matter to me, how we treat our audience, how we approach them. And also, I do like it to be professional. I like it to be put together because that's who I am. So I'm going to care that our website looks nice. Now, I don't have a spectacular website, but there's cohesiveness. There's the brand colors, there's font. I do care about things like that. I just am careful to talk about it because I don't want my beginner students to care about it too much.
So strong. Last question on courses. What comes first, email or your course? Building your list.
Great question. So I tell my students, you can create a course while you grow your email list, but we want at least 500 people on our email list before we launch the course. So you can be doing both, but the minute you want to launch, we got to get at least 500 people on our list.
Do you recommend, when people feel very overwhelmed and this is a side hustle, they think, okay, they're following the Think Media podcast. I'm trying to be consistent on YouTube. Oh, now I need to create a lead magnet.
Yeah.
Now I'm building my email list. When am I going to have time to create the course? Do you recommend people slowing down and taking a break, or trying to chop up their time and do each of these things to slowly make progress? And maybe it's not a one size fits all, but in light of that, okay, I'm creating content. And yeah, I'm not even full-time as a solopreneur with a VA or even did my first launch. I'm still in those early stages, and I'm trying to go through DCA and make my videos and record my podcast and get my modules out there. And it's all of the things. If there's a little bit of sequencing, what would your thought be?
You know my audience well. Like, that's exactly what they're thinking. I'm trying to do all of this. And I would say, first of all, a lot of my students, they need to make money fairly quickly, meaning it might be a side hustle, but all they want to do is leave that 9-to-5 job, or they've left the 9-to-5 job. So they don't have a choice. They have to make money. So I always say, let's choose one way, one offer you're going to make money. For me, if you're in my world, it's going to be a course. So if it's going to be a course, we need to think about the things that are going to get that course launched, which is your email list and your weekly original content, because I think that feeds into growing an email list. So if you told me, Amy, you have to choose one, it is creating an email list. And notice I did not say it's growing your social media. I have a lot of opinions about that. I think social media is fickle. I think you're building your business on rented land when you go all in with social. I think social is a great way to grow an email list, and that's how we should look at it. And there's other ways to, the engagement and the impact you can make. But at the end of the day, if you said, Amy, choose between 1 million followers on Instagram or an email list of, let's say, 5,000, I am choosing that email list every single day. So you do want to focus on growing that email list.
So let's just briefly talk about email marketing. And you already made some bold statements there. Do you think that email marketing is underrated or overrated for most entrepreneurs?
Absolutely underrated. You would be amazed about how many marketers will say, growing an email list takes time. I don't want to focus on it. I have one woman, she has over 1 million followers on TikTok, and I got to talk to her and kind of help her put together a course. And she said, I don't want to grow an email list. People are annoyed to get emails. I don't want to be that annoyance. I'm just using social media. And I think, okay, one day if TikTok goes away, you are screwed. Like, what the heck? But I couldn't convince her, so I just let her do her thing. But I definitely believe that you've got to focus on this, but it has to be intentional. So the reason why I say underrated is because this does take time, but I think everything in life that's worth it is going to take some time. And the beautiful thing about growing an email list is once you set your foundation, it starts to happen more organically. It becomes so much easier. It's that foundational part that might take a moment.
So you would really rather have 5,000 email subscribers than 1 million TikTok followers?
Absolutely. Do you know? Well, you don't know. I'm going to tell you how many people that will come into my world that have millions of TikTok followers. I don't. I have 10,000. I do not post on TikTok anymore. So I have 10,000 followers, and I have about almost 500,000 on Instagram. So that's good. People could smash me with their numbers on social media, and I know I make a whole lot more money than them. And I know it's my email list. So I will die on this one.
Okay. How about playing this scenario though? How about Instagram? Would you rather have 500,000 followers on Instagram, which you do, or 5,000 people on an email list?
Absolutely 5,000 people on an email list. But this is a trick question and I created it, I know. But here's the deal. If you said, okay, Amy, actually, no, I'm not going to give you the 5,000 people on an email list. I'm giving you the 500,000 on Instagram. I would literally focus on moving them to an email list. Yes.
And because I'm thinking, especially one of the biggest modern trends that's working would be ManyChat or having someone comment. And if you haven't engaged 500,000 on Instagram.
And if you're willing to use that to grow an email list, yes. My point is people will have 500,000 people on Instagram and not focus on growing an email list. So that's why it's a trick question. Give me the 500,000 people on Instagram and I'll show you how I can grow my list to 100,000 because not all of them are going to move over. But if you're not intentional, a bunch of people on social media, it's not where it's at. It does not do what an email list will do.
Yes. Donald Miller today on a podcast said he thinks one email subscriber is worth about $34. That might have been his math.
No, I think I heard it through, I think OptiMonster had said something like that. And I'm living proof. Absolutely.
So that's such a mindset shift. If you're speaking to those who have still objections, but like, do people still use their email? Like, does email really work? Break that down. I mean,
so what I always say is think about the last time you opened an email. I'm pretty sure every day we open emails. Yeah. We don't open all of them. We send some to spam. We get rid of some. But the ones that speak to us, we're never going to miss it, whether it's a store, an influencer, a marketer, whatever it might be. And so we all have those emails. Be that person to your subscribers. And the way you do that is one, you are consistent. You are showing up regularly in their inbox. You care deeply about your subject lines. This is a big one. So I'm a big fan of subjectline.com. It's a free resource. I tell all my students about it, but they literally help you come up with a better subject line that's going to work. And the reason I say this resource all the time is that's the first thing they're going to see. And so many of us don't give the time there. So you pay attention to your subject lines. You show up often in their inbox and you give value every single time. You are going to be that person. So yes, email works incredibly well when you are intentional about how you're doing it.
If you're creating content on YouTube or you have a video podcast, what is the next step to start building your email list?
Yeah. So I have a podcast and you are the master at YouTube. And so with both, I believe that you should never end a podcast or never have a podcast or a YouTube channel or show that you don't have a call to action for a freebie on there. I might embed it in the middle of a podcast. I might mention in the intro, but there's always some way for you to get on my email list through my podcast episodes. So I love finding an organic way to do it that's built in. So let me give you an example. So I might be talking about creating digital courses, and then I'll say there's so many myths with digital courses. One might be XYZ. Actually, I've got a freebie. I'm going to outline the 5. If you want to go grab it, here's the URL. Then I just keep moving on. So it's not this big dance that I do about it, but I find organic ways. So I believe there should always be a call to action on a YouTube video or a podcast for a lead magnet.
Strong. And what are some of the most effective lead magnets?
So the very one that's working right now that I think is the very, very best, actually, you guess. So like all the different kind of formats, what do you think is the one that's like killing it?
It's one pager.
It's a quiz.
A quiz.
Now, this is a little bit more advanced. So for those of you who have never created a lead magnet, we're creating a PDF, a one pager, a checklist, a cheat sheet. That's what I teach. We're starting there. But once you get that going, the next thing is a quiz. And the reason why quizzes are such great list builders is people love to talk about themselves and learn about themselves. And so for the ladies, you'll know this. When we were young in the magazines we used to read, there used to be all the kind of quizzes like, what does your favorite Halloween candy say about your love life? And we're like typing in or answering all the questions we want to know. So the reason why is because we're curious about ourselves. That's very human nature, normal thing. That's why I love quizzes. Now, what I've learned over the last year and something we've been experimenting with is when you create a quiz, think about a quiz that can cast a wide net. That's very fun, curiosity engaging. I have a gal that I interviewed for my podcast, and I'm going to get this wrong, but her name's Harley Jordan, so I want to give her credit. But her quiz was, are you a fox, a cat, I forget the 2 other animals. There's 4 animals. I had to know what animal I was. I don't know why I had to know, but once she told you, you answered some questions, and then she told you more about yourself and what to do with it. So quizzes, when you can create curiosity, when they can be a little bit more mainstream, when you can tell people a little bit more about themselves and it's kind of fun and engaging, works like gangbusters. And here's another thing. When you run ads to a quiz, way cheaper than a lot of different things that you run ads to. You'd be amazed. So cheap ads and really great for curiosity and people wanting to get on, find out more about themselves.
Man, that's so great. And you have some resources. I have one final question for you, but I want to make sure that people can check out some of your resources. You do have a free email marketing training.
Yes.
So we'll link that up in the show notes. You are also the author of your 2-week notice.
Yep.
And New York Times bestselling book.
Yes.
What is that book about if people want to check it out and go deeper in that?
So 2 weeks notice is all about how to find or put together a plan to quit your job, make more money, work where you want, and change the world. And it's basically what my journey was, and so many of my students is, I'm in a 9-to-5 job that I don't want to be in anymore, but I have no idea what I would do. So the book's not about creating courses. It's about putting together a plan of how you're going to leave that job and start a business of your dreams. Everything you need to know from start to finish. And it was basically my journey and what I teach other people how to do as well.
Amazing. So we'll have that in the show notes as well. And before that final question, is there anything else right now that you want to give a shout out to or invite people to or resources you have?
I so appreciate you asking. I think my podcast, Online Marketing Made Easy, we talk about courses and list building and entrepreneurship and mindset and all the fun things, challenges, boot camps, all the stuff we talked about. So it's a great resource if you're just getting started.
Amazing. So we'll link that up as well. My final question is, what is your why? What is the mission behind all of this and the impact you want to make, especially after you've been so successful? What keeps you going? And break that down.
15 years ago when I started, my why was I wanted more freedom for myself. I didn't want to be told what to do, when to do it, or how to do it. I wanted to create a life on my terms. It was very selfish, and that's okay. It was the only way I was getting out of 9-to-5 if my why was I want something better for my life. 15 years later, and the impact I've been able to make for my family, myself, and my students, I wake up every morning in hopes of creating freedom for other people. And especially women that are in a job where they're not appreciated, they're not making enough money, they're invisible. I want to teach them that there is a totally different opportunity. I'm the breadwinner of my family, which is a different gender role than we usually see. I grew up with my dad was a firefighter, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. The man made the money. In my family, my husband is retired firefighter and I am the breadwinner. And I want to show more women this is a different life that you can absolutely have and make an amazing impact. So I first wanted freedom for me. Now I want freedom for so many people out there that want it as well.